Free agency hasn't opened yet, but the Chicago Bears could still make a few quiet moves that matter. In this episode, Justin and I will break down 5 roster decisions ahead of free agency. Maybe a smart trade that could clear the deck, a veteran cap-related release that makes financial sense, or maybe even a re-signing that could keep continuity intact. This probably won't be a splashy offseason like the last few years, but that doesn't mean it won't be important. Sometimes the smaller, calculated moves are the ones that set up everything that follows. I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. As I said, tonight with me is Justin Onayemi. We got free agency talk. Let's get into it.
All right. Thanks for joining us here on the Halas Huddle. Please subscribe, like, and comment. There'll be a lot to comment on this episode. Like Rob said, we're going to go through 5, kind of like a little bit like 6 maybe, moves that the Bears might make in the next week as they prepare to enter free agency. They do have to make some moves, Rob, because of money, but we've kind of ranked these moves in the order of likelihood that we believe they'll happen. And I can't wait for a week from now to kind of take out our scorecard and see how we do.
Yeah. Just a reminder, this time last year, this upcoming week that we're heading into is when the Chicago Bears made their trade for Joe Thuney. It's when the Chicago Bears made their trade for Jonah Jackson. So look, moves are going to start happening. They won't become official until the year starts, right? But these things were announced and discussed ahead of time. Because why? Well, because the NFL Combine just finished, and that's where all this, hot and heavy talks happen, right? Like the Combine to me is about medicals. The Combine to me is about measurements, and the Combine to me is about what goes on behind the scenes, behind closed doors between other general managers and coaches, right? That's the key right there. What actually happens out on the field, as far as like the underwear Olympics, I like to call it, means a lot less importance to me.
You could sleep during that part, right, Aaron Glenn?
A lot of them do. A lot of them do. We can also make fun of Mark Carman for doing that too when he was out there covering it for CHGO a couple years ago. So, but yeah, you made an important comment there. The Chicago Bears and every team in the NFL, they need to be compliant with the salary cap as of March 11th by 4 p.m. Eastern. As of right now, the cap amount is officially $301.2 million per club. And as of I think this past week, 10 teams were reported to be over that cap. The Chicago Bears were one of those teams. We've talked about that already. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I don't think anything's really changed. So they should be about a little bit less than 10 million over the cap. So Justin, how are they going to get there before March 11th?
Yeah, so our number one move, I mean, you'll see on the slide in a moment here, the likelihood we set at 99%. They have to move Tremaine Edmunds, and they've basically made it very clear. Like you said, during the Combine, when everyone's there, they make it clear that they are allowing him to seek trade. Now, a person like me, honestly, I thought he would seek trade and there'd be nothing, and then it's about release. But we are hearing that there are some teams that are potentially interested. I mean, he's still young-ish, even though he's been in the league so long. He came in as like a 19-year-old or 20, I guess.
Yep, 19.
So even though he's going into his 9th season, he's still only 28, and he's a good player. The Bears aren't getting rid of him because he's a bad player. They're getting rid of him because he's owed way more money than they can afford to pay right now. And so that's why we put the chance of this happening at 99%. But I think if it could be a trade, and part of that stipulation is you're not covering hopefully too much of the salary, now you're getting something in return for losing a good player. So whatever that may be, whether it's even just a 4th or 5th round pick, I think that's a good thing. Plus the cap relief.
Yeah, I think realistically it's going to probably be a 5th round pick. Maybe it could be a 5th round pick. Well, if it's going to be a 5th round pick, it's going to be this year, right? So it's not going to be something where they're going to have some stipulation where it could be better for next year. But as you can see the numbers, right? I mean, all they have to do is remove Tremaine Edmunds from the roster, and they are already salary cap compliant. That gives them wiggle room and time to make adjustments and other moves throughout the offseason to whatever financially finagle whatever they need to do in order to get the roster set up the way that they want it to be set up. So this is why this is 99% chance of happening according, to us. That's our projection. It's like betting odds basically is what we're putting this out there. And exactly. And the trade rumors are, there's already 3 teams specifically, the Titans, the Raiders, and the Giants, who are considering or who are rumored to be interested in this move. The Bears can't hold on to an off the ball linebacker that's going to cost them this amount of money when it can give them the financial wiggle room to do other things. Tremaine Edmunds has to go. I know he started off the year really well, but then he got hurt. So you're also dealing with, the nagging injury that took place towards the end of the year. And I know you came back and he seemed to be fine, but as these guys get older and more banged up, we saw it with TJ Edwards, right? He just kind of slowed down, and we heard something else that you get out of the combine are the press conferences. And we heard multiple times about how the Chicago Bears want to get younger and faster on defense. I don't think you're going to do that by holding on to Tremaine Edmunds.
Well, and real quick, you said maybe a 5th round pick. And if that's disappointing to anyone, you never know who has what picks at this point. But Raiders, Titans, those are teams picking at the early side of a round. So at least you'd be on the front end of a round. So that's something to consider.
That's
an early 5th,
Yeah, and I might have a little bit more to play with in that. We'll call this a tease when I get to my surprise move at number 5. So, all right. Potential move number 2. This is another one that we kind of had an idea is most likely going to happen. It's not because we're just throwing it out there. It's because there's plenty of rumors to go. Look, they're already cap compliant, but now they're going to be, even better because they're going to have even more room. And why is that?
Well, you got to move on from DJ Moore, probably. And I shouldn't have said it that way because we only put it at 75% chance. But if it doesn't happen, I still think they're going to do something to come off of that $28.5 million cap hit. We talked about restructuring him, and then you're kind of pushing this problem to next season and beyond. So I don't love that as much as potentially a trade. We set a day 3 pick. So again, if you can get a 4th round pick and clear that money, or a 5th round pick and clear that money, I think that's going to help you in the long run. You now will have to kind of replace him, but you're going to replace him with a much cheaper option because now you're looking to bring in like a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 type of player. And you can find that at much cheaper than the cap hit you'd be paying DJ Moore.
Yeah, it's not that we want to see him go. I mean, if you think about DJ Moore, I put on here in the graphic, it's going to be sad to see him go. The way he ended the season was absolutely fantastic. Obviously, was a big part in the Chicago Bears making it through to the playoffs the way that they did, beating the Packers 2 times at the end of the year. It's just, that amount of money with the cap situation that they're in. I think we talked about in our last episode, the way that it was worded while it was at the while Poles was interviewed down there was like, it's too soon to tell if he's going to be on the roster, right? Like is kind of the response that he gave. I'm not saying it exactly the same way as he did, but basically that was the line. Like, is DJ Moore going to be on the roster in 2026 was what the question was. And it was, well, it's a little too soon to know for sure. And we think there's a high probability at 75% he is going to be gone. There is chatter about, multiple teams being interested. There hasn't been any concrete rumors about teams specifically, but I can, tell you our insider, Gary Ross Rappaport, there's definitely some interest out there from teams. So that's pretty much all we can share at this time, but there's definitely some teams out there interested in this move. And then look, if they trade him, and this would be, a pre-June 1, obviously trade because you're trying to get draft capital for this year, you're going to save $16.5 million. So now not only are they cap compliant with the Tremaine Edmunds move, right? That puts them at around $4 million above or under the cap. Now you add another 16. So now you're at 20, right? Already 20. Now your whole draft class is taken care of because we've already talked about is about 10 million. So you got about 10 million to play with. What are you going to do? Where are we going to go from here? There's definitely.
I was going to say, it's not just about being compliant. You actually need some of that money. So that's why I'm glad you added that part. You got to get enough for your draft class. And then you are going to hopefully be somewhat active in free agency. Maybe not the big splash move, but maybe it's a couple key positions that you want to get a little better at, have some more depth. And one of those moves might be a free agent that's kind of internal, right?
Could be.
Oh, sorry. We moved that one down a little, didn't we?
We did.
My bad.
You're teasing it. You're
My
teasing
bad.
it.
Well, it's coming.
So
another move, and you actually, this is a good way to put it. We were 99% sure on move number 1, 75% sure on number 2, and now we're coming drastically down. What do we have the percentage at here? Should we first, Rob, tell us the move, but then also note the percentage here?
Yeah, so this isn't, again, this is not a move that we're just throwing out there. Like, these are actual rumors that have been, put out there by credible sources. So it's not just like this is being thrown out for absolutely no reason. But look, we've talked about it already. We're going to continue to talk about it at least until before the draft starts. And that is, forgot to hit the slide button. Tyson Bagent, right? A potential trade target for certain teams. This isn't a great quarterback class outside of Mendoza. I'm not a big fan of anyone else really as far as a first round draft pick goes. So Tyson Bagent could be a guy that teams that are cap strapped might look at getting. Arizona obviously is the team that was rumored originally. But there's been a couple other teams, thrown out there. Miami, and we're throwing that one out there just because of their cap situation with what they're going to have in dead cap because of the Tua situation. This doesn't help the Bears financially at all, really. I mean, I shouldn't say at all. Almost $4 million is helpful. I mean, that is a veteran, corner that you could add to the team. Maybe it's, the money that you use to bring back DeMarco Jackson. So you have a linebacker on the team that's familiar with the system and still has speed. But yeah, we don't think this is a very high potential of happening. I know Bob joked about it on the last episode that, it'd be really interesting to see Tyson Bagent get more return than Justin Fields. So that would be something that would be pretty hilarious, even as a Justin Fields believer and hopeful that he still finds his way. But 25%, pretty low.
Yeah, but you said $4 million in savings. That's not nothing. But also, up at the top, let's not overlook, we're saying that this is for a day 2 pick. Because remember, our stance, and I believe the Bears' stance is, you're not desperately looking to get rid of Bagent. You're not just going to get rid of him for a 5th or a 6th round pick. If a team is going to give you a 2nd round pick or a 3rd round pick, that in and of itself is value. I mean, you could be picking in the 80s, and the type of player you're going to get at 80, you are hoping is contributing this year in meaningful ways on the field and into your future at an affordable cost. Whereas Bagent, as much as we like him, as much as they sing his praises, you're really hoping he's not going to see the field much at all. So, yeah, I mean, we debated how much that percentage should be, but I'd say 25 is still that's pretty high to even. It's one of the key moves that we are looking and have our eye on for this week. And just to reiterate something we said in a previous show, if you're a team looking for a quarterback, I mean, I just heard Derek Carr might come out of retirement, but that's like a dude who's been 1 year removed, and what are you going to have to pay him? And there's a lot of unknown there too. But in this case, if you trade him now, Bagent, they're getting 2 years of control at an affordable rate for a guy that maybe the ceiling is not crazy, but the floor might be something you're willing to take. So we'll see. It's kind of interesting. And I think the Bears trading him this offseason compared to what you might get next offseason, because of the 2 years I just said, his value is going to go way, way down. So I guess you could sell high here. Great return on the investment, as you put it.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You got a UDFA that you brought in. He's pretty much, I mean, look, he's shown some flashes, but in his actual regular season play, he's thrown 3 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. I mean, he's not been lights out. You saw some growth, obviously, with the Ben Johnson era and things that he did in the preseason. People are banking on the chances of him succeeding, 1, because of his work ethic, 2, because of how much praise he gets by the coaching staff and players within the locker room, and 3, just the little bit that you've seen, right? The accuracy is pretty good. And if you're putting him in a system, where you're not having to throw the ball super deep all the time, I think he's going to be just fine. if you turn a UDFA into a day 2 pick, again, that is great ROI. Like,
and
you cannot just walk away from that.
It's not just the coaching staff saying they like the guy. It's Ben Johnson saying it. And you see with a guy like Ben Johnson, his OC gets promoted to another job, and people want a little bit of that, success to kind of rub off on them, I guess you could say. And so I think it will serve him well at his next stop. And hopefully that means teams have to pay for it in terms of a round 2 or a round 3 pick.
Yeah, so go to the comment section. We want you to put what percentages you think these moves might have. So, the first one, do you agree at 99%? The second one, we're at 75. Do you agree with that? Do you think it should be higher or lower? Let us know. What about the Tyson Bagent one? 25%, higher, lower? What do you think?
And that big gap might mean maybe you have one that you want to say that we're not hitting on. Now, we still have a few more to unveil. And with that, I kind of teased it before accidentally. Something I would have put much higher earlier in the offseason, Rob. I would have had it up in that 70% range. We've now brought all the way down to what, 20%? I think we have it at. And that is re-signing Kevin Byard. Poles mentioned him by name in his postseason breakdown. And maybe that was coming out of emotion because it seems like their tone has changed a bit. I guess you have to look at the whole landscape of the league and maybe finding out certain players could be available via trade or taking a closer look at the draft and seeing how heavy it is at safety has changed their tune. But we know it's a position you need. You have literally no one signed. And so to bring back a guy who was an all-pro, who probably had one of his best seasons just last season, who knows your system, who's a leader on the team, captain, all those things made me think this was going to happen. But maybe he hears that he's going to make more elsewhere, and that could be at play. I don't know, but now I'm not as confident about this. So what's your take on the whole situation?
Yeah, I had it pretty high going in. It was the one thing, we did our mock off season. It was the one thing I pounded the table for. I still think Kevin Byard should be coming back. I worried that there's a little bit too much emphasis, and we see this at times, and we give Ryan Poles a lot of heat, and then we tend to not always give him the credit that he deserves. Not us in general, or not us specifically, but in general as Chicago Bears fans, right? My issue is, and this happens, we saw this with Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen was traded out of Chicago because it didn't fit Mike Martz's system. I'm a little concerned that this is a Dennis Allen situation, and Dennis Allen wants, younger, faster, but at some point you also need good football players, and Kevin Byard has been a good football player his entire career. When he was in Tennessee, he was, like, in my opinion, one of the top safeties in the league. He's bounced around a little bit, obviously, over the last few years as he's gotten older. I know the age is a thing, but, like, if you can get him to a 1 or 2 year deal, I'm bringing him back. And maybe what this means is he's just going to go test free agency, see what is out there, and then depending on what the offers are, maybe he does come back for a lesser deal just so that he can stay with the, continuity of being with this team and see where it goes in 2026. I think the 20% mark is pretty realistic at this point, just the way things feel. And to your point, the way that the free agency class is, the way that the draft class is, it does seem easier to replace positions like safety or positions like off the ball linebackers, where they don't have the financial ability to go big.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Rob, because as far as we know, Kevin Byard's not retiring, so he will be playing for someone in 2026. So here's my question for you. What contract details, so I'm talking years and AAV, let's say, what contract details will you hear that makes you think, oh, the Bears were priced out of bringing back Kevin Byard, and it's not just a decision, kind of like what you're implying with he doesn't fit Dennis Allen's mold? Because I'm thinking part of this now is just them realizing they're not going to have as much money as they might have anticipated.
Yeah, so if he gets a 2-year contract and it's anything over $8 million in AAV, they were priced out.
I would have went to 10, basically saying I was hoping they would get him for about 8.
Yeah, I agreed. Anything over 8. So okay. Like if they can get him at 8 or less, I think he'd stay.
Because if he's playing for someone else next year, especially if it's anywhere near all pro level, the Bears will be asked, hey, why'd you guys let that dude walk out of here? And
Right.
I guess if they just say we weren't willing to pay that price, that makes sense.
Well, Al Harris is still here, right? Like he didn't get a job somewhere. So like the fact that he's still here, you got to think that he wants him as a coach wants some of these DBs back. I mean, and I can't imagine they're going to be able to afford Nashawn Wright, but I don't know. Well,
the Bears think they're in a window where they're competing for Super Bowls now. And so to me, you want some guys that are like leaders and guys who've been there and done that. And to let a guy like Byard walk out, you better be sure you're replacing him with some high quality play, and that isn't one of your holes that now keeps you from competing at the level you're hoping to compete.
My other concern is, everybody just is like replacing everybody. You're going to go from the NFC North champs, had your chance to beat the Rams to go to the NFC championship, and yet you're going to replace 6 to 7 starters on defense. Like, I don't know if that's a recipe for success. I mean, maybe it is because the defense has holes, but I feel like some of these guys, for continuity purposes, need to be brought back. But again, financial situation is at play here. So I guess, again, we're just going to kind of have to see how this plays out. I do think Byard is one of those guys, even though he did lead, with 7 interceptions, I think, on the year last year. I don't know if the market's going to be as big because of his age. I don't know. It's going to be a tough situation. And I know injury is going to play a part in that too. We didn't see, oh God, why can't I think of his name? Corner, number 1.
Jalen Johnson.
Thank you. Jalen Johnson. I kept want to say Jalen Jones, which was also a defensive back, but not the guy I was thinking of. We barely saw Jalen Johnson last year, especially not at 100%. So Kyler Gordon missed a big chunk of the year last year. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do. There definitely needs to be a defensive overhaul, whether it's what's going to come from both free agency and the draft. So is there a way for other ways for them? I'm not exactly sure where your mind is with your surprise move.
Well, I was going to say, up to this point, these 4 moves we've presented have been consensus Halas Huddle. We even included Bob, who couldn't record tonight. We should have said this at the beginning. We are recording Sunday night. This will release early Monday morning. So if we wake up tomorrow and already Tremaine Edmunds has been traded, I don't know. I don't think it'll work like that, but you never know. Big stuff is happening this week. So for number 5, though, this is not consensus. We each are going to take a swing at one. I could go first if you want. What do you think?
Yeah, I have 1.5.
Okay. So does that mean you should go first, or?
No, you can go first. It's fine.
Okay. All right. So mine, which is interesting because when you look at the cap ramifications of this move, it might actually hurt them a little bit towards the cap this year, depending on how they decide to do it. But mine would be extending Darnell Wright. And here's the thing. Dan Rochard just was in the headlines for some comments he made about left tackle. And he kept referring to, we want what we have at right tackle. We want what we have at right tackle. They know what they have at right tackle. They have an all-pro. They think they have Penei Sewell Part 2. And if that's the case, you want him around long-term. The line has been a strength since this last season, but a lot of that was those trades you talked about. Thuney, veteran. Jonah Jackson, veteran. Dahlman, you got on a free agent deal. This is Darnell Wright off his rookie deal. He's probably going to reset the right tackle market. So the earlier you do it, you get it at a cheaper AAV. You also can now play around whether you want to front load it, back load it, or maybe get creative and middle load it because you want to offset this with when you're going to have to pay Caleb Williams. The cap is going to keep going up. As we know, it might go way, way up in 2029, which might just align perfectly for the Bears. But anyway, I would like to extend Darnell Wright. Hopefully they do it this week so that they can know what kind of impact that's going to have on their cap in 2026, but also the years to come. He can be an anchor on a good O-line. What do you think about that move, Rob?
Yeah, I definitely think it needs to happen. Even Dan Rochard kind of hinted at the fact that, that they don't have a Darnell Wright on the left side. Because, I mean, the way he talked about Darnell Wright, you could kind of see, like, his eyes got a little lighter, and he was a little bit more, I don't know, happy, just little bubbly.
Well, they don't move him to left tackle. He's your right tackle.
He's your right tackle. Yeah, you don't want to. I personally don't want to see that move unless they think that's the move forever, right? If they think that they can make it happen and he's the left tackle forever and he's going to be the guy, perennial type, Pro Bowl type nods every year, I'm fine with it, but I get very leery about moving guys from one side to the other. It just doesn't happen. And we saw it.
Penei Sewell never moved, and I kept bringing that name up,
And we saw it too with Ozzie Trapillo. Like he tried to move and struggled for such a long time, and then finally towards the end of the year, when he did get back in there, he was a lot more serviceable. I think people think he was better than he was. I still think there's a lot to be said at that position, and I don't think that the Bears should ever not be trying to upgrade the left tackle position until they get a guy like Darnell Wright, who's a left tackle. Or
are you trying to segue right now?
I'm not trying to segue, but I will say I have a half move, right? Okay, so I have two surprise moves. Only one can happen, but one of them that I did want to throw out there, and I'm not even going to give too much detail on it because contractually, I don't really know for sure how they would make it work.
They can always make it work, Rob.
What?
This is the NFL. They can always make it work.
That's right. And one of the things, I don't think it's going to cost a lot, even though he is technically a left tackle. If Walker Little is available, he was the left tackle of the Jacksonville Jaguars, lost that position this year, now is the backup. Your prototypical size, he was a second-round pick. I think he was a higher second-round pick, like in the 40s. But he's going to be making his cap hits almost 15 million this year. So again, they're going to have to make something like that work. But could he be the stopgap, right? Or the guy who gets brought in to try to kind of help? Because look, Ozzie Trapillo's out basically the whole year. Let's not count on Ozzie Trapillo at all. The chances of him coming back and making an impact this year is very slim to none. You got to do something at left tackle, and that left tackle position in the draft, the guys that are going to be up there at 20, gone before 25, there's not going to be a guy that you can get at 25 or in the second round that's going to be able to just step in and be that guy. And you have too many other holes to fill on defense that you need to fill. So just a guy to think about. Not necessarily a guy I think it's going to actually happen. I'm not pounding the table for this at all. Something though that I do think could happen. It would be very interesting because the contract situation is a little bit different. And you're going to have to extend this guy within a year if you make this move. I hinted at it earlier when we were talking about Tremaine Edmunds. There was a team on that list that's interested in him. And that team is the New York Giants. I have a feeling that the Chicago Bears, Ryan Poles has been in contact with them, right? They've been on the phone. They're talking. If I'm Poles, I'm probably trying to get Dexter Lawrence. That makes more sense to me. Go get your defensive tackle, a guy who's going to be a big impact player, right? But is that going to be similar to how they were trying to get Trey Smith last year? And then instead of Trey Smith, because the Chiefs wouldn't move on from him, they settled for Joe Thuney. I think that worked out. A 4th-round pick for Joe Thuney, I think that worked out pretty well. I'm not exactly going to I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this trade would work out the same way. But is it possible that while on the phone trying to get Dexter Lawrence, maybe they're in the process of trying to move Tremaine Edmunds within that deal, right? The Giants are like, nah, we're not giving up Dexter Lawrence. They like their defensive front. Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, right? That's a good front. But a former first round pick, right? Who is on the trade block? Kayvon Thibodeau. And maybe that is what ends up happening, right? You send Tremaine Edmunds over, you bring back Thibodeau. Maybe there's a pick swap somewhere, in the 5th round or something. Something to make it even. I don't know. To me, that sounds like it's way more realistic and on the table. I'm sure Gary's going to be like, Rob, you're a fucking idiot. There's no interest in that. Then they got to extend him and they don't have the money. Look, I understand all of that, but he is a good run defender. He knows how to set the edge. He's a bigger guy, 6'5", 260. And he's a couple of years removed from having 11.5 sacks. His pressure rate that year was in the 30s. Maybe he just needs a new place to play.
Well, and they have, like you said, a wealth of options at the edge, which is why a guy like Thibodeau, it's kind of like the Bears with DJ Moore. Like you are able to deal away from a position of strength, but they might want a guy like Tremaine Edmunds because they want to compete right away. I mean, Jackson Dart on his rookie deal, he showed a lot as a rookie. They were missing Malik Neighbors for a while there, and he should hopefully be back. So it's not like they want to try to bottom out and be some crap team or, total rebuild type of situation. They probably feel like they're, in that mix of low-level contenders. And so getting a somewhat proven commodity makes some sense. Remember, a big part of moving on from Edmonds is the savings you're going to get in money. So if you're bringing a player back in return, now a lot of that money might go towards covering the costs of that player, which is why I still think it's okay to just receive a pick back for a guy like Edmonds. But I like how you're getting creative because certainly edge is a position we want to see the Bears try to improve. I believe they ranked like 31st in the league in pass rush win rate. Wow.
Yep.
That's hard to say. But it's hard to say because we never saw it because it wasn't happening. So to take a swing like that makes some sense. I just hope the money could all work out. But to my earlier point, they can always make the money work out somehow, some way.
So I do have one other thing that I overlooked that I do want to just point out before we end the show. Press Taylor is now the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. He was in Jacksonville with Walker Little. 2024, Walker Little, and look, I'm not a big PFF grade guy, but it's just something I could quickly throw out there to give some context to the show. Statistically, his overall grade was 72.8. Had a very good year in 2024. So, I don't know, maybe that connection, maybe that works out here. Maybe it is Walker Little.
So from what I hear, Jacksonville, I don't know if they were the only team, but their GM was not at the sleepover party. So the likelihood of an insider conversation triggering a trade, I guess it goes down slightly. But again, we didn't put a percentage on our surprise move number 5. So
we did not.
We'll see. But it's going to be exciting. Moves will be happening. We can't guarantee that we're going to, break in with episodes on every single move. But I think if some big ones happen, we'll probably put out some content. So if you're going to want to see that, make sure you subscribe, put on notifications. We love to keep the Bears dialogue going all year long.
Yeah, and if you guys are here for the stadium talk, there's one, possibly 2 episodes that might be coming out over the next couple of weeks. Mark Batnick is possibly coming back on the show to discuss the situation and where it's gone from when we had him on a few weeks ago. And we have one other potential guest that might be coming on to talk about what he thinks is wrong with the bill. And maybe I can get him to explain what would work and get him to agree to it actually being worthwhile for the state of Illinois. So on that note, I got nothing else. Until next time, bear down, claws up.
As after Packers all